Hey, Soul Sparklers, it's all happening.
With a soul sparkle.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Soul Sparkle Living Show. I'm so excited to be back this week and joined by my special guest and dear friend, Brooke Rash. Welcome to the show, Brooke.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So excited to have you here. We were just talking before we started recording that we've actually known each other for 9 years. Is it 9 years already?
Yeah.
Let me tell the story a little bit first of how we met because it was so interesting. And I actually think it's what made us like bond so quickly. So we met at this event in San Francisco, and you go into a thing thinking it's going to be one way, and it turns out to be completely sideways from what we were expecting. And it turned out to be just really crazy. And I think we just bonded because it was so crazy that when you go through that kind of experience together, now we're just lifelong friends because of it. It was such a mess. But I got you out of it, which was great. You and Jason, which was wonderful.
It was a wild experience, I will say that. But yeah, I think you're one of the few people that I'm still like really connected with from that event. So I feel like it was meant to be. We were supposed to know each other.
I think so too. And I think, isn't it always like that, right? Like you always end up keeping the people that you're meant to and where we were destined to meet. And then we've even met probably like 3 or 4 other times in real life since then. I remember once in Miami and then New York. We've been together there before as well. Anyway, I'm just excited to have you and to have you share your story. I think that you and Jason are one of my favorite couples, and it's always fun to watch what you're up to in the world. And you just got back from a fantastic adventure in Turkey. So what I want to do though, Brooke, is just kind of have you maybe share a little bit about your journey. I mean, I know that just like all of us, you've had highs and lows and ebbs and flows and all the things. And I know that you've been really in a big transition year. This last year has been quite the transition for you. And it hasn't been an easy one, but it's been worth it. And we've talked on and off throughout the year, the last few years really, about transitions. Do you want to share a bit of your story around kind of this evolution, if you will, and what might be a benefit for the listeners?
In business, I think in life and in business, if you choose to be on this soul sparkle path, as Hayley likes to dub it, there's always going to be the ebbs and flows. There's always going to be seasons of transition. If you're not having at some point seasons of transition, you're probably not growing. So I think that's something to consider because the seasons of transition, like you mentioned, can be very challenging. I'm very thankful for my faith that has gotten me through this most recent transition. But it's always like when you walk through the fire, I feel like is when the rewards are on the other side of that. The rewards are on the other side of the risk. And so for me personally, I've been in business for 18 years. I got my entrepreneurial start in the direct sales space as a need, literally to be able to put food on the table. I was pregnant with my second child, had a 3-year-old, and I realized early on, I was like, I'm going to be working to pay for daycare because I didn't have formal education. I was a college dropout. My husband and I didn't come from anything. Like when we met, we lived in a single wide mobile home in Alabama in a trailer park where there was a prostitution ring going across the street and probably a meth lab next door. Like it wasn't the best place to raise a kid. And we just knew that we had to hustle and we had to work to get to where we wanted to go. We never had any handouts or hand ups. We always just worked and grinded and looked for opportunities and took action on those opportunities. So for me, that was my first step into the world of business. And it wasn't ultimately where I stayed with that company because it was a party plan. Do you remember way back when people would like shop at their friends, houses? They'd go and buy jewelry and candles and those sort of things. It was a business like that, but it was a little spicier in nature. And it kept food on the table. But what it really did for me was it helped me build my self-confidence. It helped me learn how to speak in front of people because I would have to go in people's homes every week and literally stand up in front of a bunch of drunk women and talk about sex and intimacy. And I was 27, 28 at the time. So a lot of times they didn't take me seriously because they were older and they had been drinking. So it was quite the experience. But it helped me learn how to speak in front of people, which I think is such an invaluable skill. It taught me sales, it taught me marketing, and it taught me how to lead a team. And it taught me that I really loved helping empower other people because there's so many career paths that we can take where we only empower ourselves, right? But the path that I've taken is one where other people can come with me on the journey. So I did that for about 7 years. Then I took a little break. And in that little break was when I met you, actually, because my husband and I were doing the marketing for the event that we were at. We were speaking, but we were also doing the behind the scenes marketing. And this was before video was so common, it was before everyone could edit videos on their phone. It was like when like you really had to hire a professional to do this. And so we were doing the marketing because we were really good at knowing how to just get the energy going for an event. We've people has always been our thing, like getting groups of people together and connecting and networking has always been our thing. So we were doing a lot of freelance marketing for people. We both have a history and a background in health and nutrition. So we had a little season of doing health coaching. And then I got pulled back into the world of network marketing at the same year that we met. And that ended up changing my life. It was one of those like with the right time, the right place kind of things. I had spent the last 10 years previously building out my network. And that was a season of transition too. I had a lot of success there. And I got to a place though where I was very comfortable, but I wasn't growing anymore. And so that just kind of like to make a long story short, that was where I was sitting this time last year. I was sitting in a lot of intense feelings because it was what I knew. It was what I was comfortable with. I had built community there. I had people there that I really loved, but I wasn't growing and I wasn't building anymore. When you're not growing, I feel like for me personally, I feel like I'm dying because I feel like God puts us here with a purpose. And when we're not fulfilling that purpose and leading a life of passion, for me personally, I get really depressed. And I kind of little side note, I feel like when people are depressed, it's because they're not living their life on purpose. We can be told, oh, it's chemical, it's this, it's that. And yes, there can be some internal things that are happening. But for the most part, I would say like 90% of it has to do with like, what is our purpose? Do we wake up feeling on fire for what we're doing every day? And if you're in a place right now where you're feeling that lack of passion, like it might be time to reevaluate some things. And so that's where I was sitting about a year ago. And I was like really going like, what am I going to do? Also, there was a large amount of money that I was still currently bringing in. And to leave something like that behind whenever I was essentially responsible for providing for my family. That was our main source of income. The thought of even leaving something like that behind, like, really didn't feel like an option. So I felt boxed in. I felt like I was in a prison. And so I got what I call the golden handcuffs. It's like you're chained to something that's really good and you're making a lot of money, but you feel trapped. Like you feel like you're literally in prison because what used to bring me a lot of joy no longer brought me that same joy anymore. So I got to a place where I was like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I just, I prayed about it. I prayed about it. I prayed about it. And then a friend who I was really close with, one of my Canadian besties, she announced her departure from our company that we had been in. And we weren't on the same team. We didn't make money from each other or anything like that. We just were, we connected. Like she very like down to earth kind of girl. Like we just always like really connected, similar age. And I was like, what are you doing? Where are you going? Like, why are you going to this place? And I was like, okay, this is my opportunity to leave.
Fine.
And so I chose to leave behind a $135 million organization that I had spent building for the last 7.5 years, almost 5 million in earnings, still thousands of team members. Yes, it was a declining business, but it still was plenty of money I could have lived off of. So I chose to walk away from that. And that was very scary. There was a lot of judgment. There were a lot of people that didn't understand the choice that I had made, but I knew that I had to do what was right for me, what was right for my family, and what was right for my soul. Because my soul was just like crying out for more. And I knew that if I stayed where I was at, I was never going to have the growth that I wanted to have. So,
I love that because I think, well, so many thoughts, but the first thing that comes to mind is how many people have found themselves in a similar situation, right? Whatever industry it is, whatever the ways that you're making money, it doesn't have to be the same industry, but you find yourself in a place of comfort and stability and financial security potentially. And then it's really scary to be able to make those decisions and choose growth instead, you know? I've been there. I mean, that's how just before I met you, I had just left my super fancy corporate job and decided I was going to flitter around the world, sprinkling fairy dust and sparkles. And yeah, it's not easy, but you also know that at the end of the day, the passion is worth everything. And being on purpose really is the thing that lights us up. And that's really the whole reason we're here, to me, is to love each other and to do incredible things in the world with what we're passionate about. So I love that you were brave enough to say yes to a new opportunity. And to anyone that's listening, I think just the permission to be brave and to do something different is something that we all need to give ourselves sometimes, just permission to make those changes. And I think from watching your transition over, there was, I'm assuming, definitely some heartbreaks, some disappointment, and things that maybe people didn't handle things the way that you thought they would. And I know that's always usually part of those transitions as well, the dark side, if you will. But at the end of the day, you seem and feel happy and light, and that you made the right decision, which is always a beautiful place to be.
Because I feel like I have possibility for my future, whereas a year ago, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel like I had any potential for growth, and that was just like I said, it was killing me. So, even if I'm not where I wanna be yet, or things haven't been as easy as I maybe thought they would be, I have no regrets about making that decision because I see potential for growth where I'm at.
Yeah, and I think for all of us, we need to see the path. We need to know that there's a future, that there's possibility, right? And when you're in a place that either you've made it to the top of the game or the top of the ladder or whatever it is, right? You have those moments when you just think, is this all there is? Is this all there's going to be? And I think for me, knowing that I am now in a place where I can go anywhere and do anything I need to do. As long as I'm feeling lit up about it and I'm excited about it, it works. Like, when we've talked about this too, that this idea of following our highest excitement. Now you've got things to be excited about, and that is magnetic. And I think for all of us, when we're doing the thing that lights us up, we can't help but be connected. Like light attracts light.
That
And you are definitely shining your light for your leaders and for all of the people that are following you. It's been wonderful to watch you really grow as a leader and step into that fully. And you've done a great job.
Thank you. And I think that there is kind of a double-edged sword in this conversation because we can feel excited about things and love what we're doing and be on the right path. And there still be tasks and things associated with our business or endeavor that we don't necessarily enjoy. So sometimes people will be like, well, this feels a little bit hard, so I'm going to quit. And so I think it's like knowing the difference between is this the right path for me and do I have the grit and the determination to push through the things that maybe aren't easy? Because no matter what path we take, there will always be some resistance. There will always be hurdles and things. Like we don't live on a perfect planet, right? We deal with people. There's always going to be obstacles and challenges that we have to overcome. And I have seen people quit on things way too prematurely just because like the path got a little too hard. And that was where I had to really soul search myself before I decided to leave my last place because I really did give it my all. Like I really did try everything. I really did I was throwing spaghetti at the wall trying to figure out how to get this thing to grow again. And ultimately I was in this place of just feeling like I'm trying to hold the ship together and keep it from sinking. And I had to come to a realization where I was like, I really have done everything that I can. I've really put my heart and my soul into this, and this just is not the place for me anymore. And when you know, you know. And I feel like when you have a connection to God, you have a connection to source, you get those downloads, like you just know. And I remember being at the company conference just about a year ago, and I had this feeling in my gut, and I just cried the whole time because I knew it was over. I didn't want it to be over because it was such a happy part of my life, and it was so life changing for me, but I knew that it was over. So I think it's asking ourselves those questions like, don't give up on a hard day because you get hit with something. Like when you make a decision to pivot, it's because you have this deep knowing that it's time to make the change.
Yeah, the deep knowing, the certainty. And that's not an easy place to get to. And like you said, there's a lot of tears, there's a lot of emotion, a lot of suffering in the space between of any real decision, right? Whether it be to leave a position, leave a relationship, leave a town, whatever. Anytime you go through that process, it's the space between that is the hard place. But when you have the certainty and the knowing, and you know that you know that you know, and then you make the move, that's when everything starts to open up. At least that's usually the way it works for me.
Mhm.
When it's time, when God says move, you move.
Right. That's been my I've been in my season of really trying to be in obedience to God even when I don't like it. Like I this past month I had like a kicking screaming match at God because I'm like I don't understand XYZ, why is this happening? But I'm just trusting what he's telling me and really trying to be in obedience whereas I feel like prior. I've had a whole spiritual evolution over the past year too, where I've come back to Christ. I've come back to my religion, but like rededicated my life to Jesus, got baptized. And so I feel like before I always was in the space of like, I'm going to get what I want. Whatever I want, I'm going to have it. And sometimes that would backfire. And I definitely had my moments recently where I'm like, maybe I should just go back to that. But I know that God's plan is ultimately better than mine. And I've been on this planet long enough, 45 years, to know, like, in retrospect, God always has a plan. We can't always see it when we're in the middle of it, but his plan is always greater than our plan. And we just have to learn to trust it. And so I'm currently in that surrender and trust season. And let me tell you, that is not easy either.
No,
Doesn't always feel good.
those 2 words are some of the most challenging, I think, for all of us, right? No matter what you believe, where you are, whatever your path is, but the trust and surrender is, yeah, not easy. But at the same time, I think it creates a refinement, like yeah, we are refined by fire, when we have to walk through those seasons of whatever is not, at least for me, it's the whatever is anything less than love. If it's not love, it needs to go, right? If it's anything that is not in the highest and best, then it's going to be knocked out at some point. And sometimes we just go through those seasons, don't we? Where you have to trust till you get to the other side.
And
Which
that's what ultimately faith is. And that's how I've run my whole life. And that's how I've run my businesses. It's like, like men, especially like my husband always doesn't see it because he's very like logical. Like men are like, they want data and they want logic. And for me, I've always made decisions with my heart and like my gut instincts and just like always relying on my faith that I know no matter what, God is going to provide. We're going to be okay. We're going to have food on the table. We're going to have a roof over our head. We've never gone without. Have there been seasons where it's been more challenging and more stressful than others? Yes, absolutely. But everything's always ended up okay. And I just continue to have that faith that everything is going to be fine.
Right, because things always work out for us, don't they? Yep. It's funny. I I think right about the time I met you, I had just started really the walk of things always work out for me. Things always work out for me. And I used to have to physically say it out loud for a while until it just kind of became, you know, like the embodiment of it. That was like, okay, now I know it. I know it like I know it. And I was talking to someone the other day, I think my sweet friend April, and we were talking about how through 2020, that got a little bit rattled because it was like, wow, this is not working out for me. Like, this is not working. Right. And for all of us, it just threw everyone into this whole other reality. And I think sometimes it takes a little bit longer to get back on that track of like, okay, we're back. We're good. Things always work out. It's all going to be fine. But you almost have to give yourself these little pep talks, don't you? Sometimes to be like, it's good. We're going to be all right. Everything's going to be fine. And then you just start to lean into that trust of it is always going to work out for you. And I love watching you and Jason, how you have supported each other in that way. Because like you said, men and women, we are very different, right? They are much more like usually grounded and rooted into the reality, into the logistics, into the, structure of the thing, where we as women are much more just guided by, yeah, I just know this thing is real and this is right and this is where we need to go. And you've always just seemed to complement each other so well and support each other so beautifully. And I think that's been probably a real blessing to your community, to people that you have been working with over the years, because you do show up for each other and support each other all the time. And I love seeing that. It's just evidence of magic, you know?
And that, like, men and women need each other, like, truly. Like, it really makes a difference to have if I was just running everything and everything was running off of my heart and emotions, like, there's no telling where I would be. Like, it's good for me to have him to, like, keep me, like, grounded in logic at times, and it's also good for me to have him, like, get out of his head and be like, "Hey, let's think about this differently."
Yeah, it's such a complementary energies, you know, when I think when we all function in our divine design, let's call it that, right? The way we are made, it's really beautiful when you can be in your brilliance and in your genius, and he can as well. And there's no competition. It's just, like you said, mutual support. And it's just this ebb and flow where you get to do exactly what you're designed to do, and he does exactly what he's designed to do. And it's beautiful how that works together, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so good. And your pictures from your trip were phenomenal. And for those of you listening, you're going to want to follow Brooke on her social media, because not only does she do a great job with all of her business things, but also she and Jason just create such magic when you guys are together. And he's so talented too. I mean, I've always loved whatever he's creating. You know, it's always magic. But the horses and the videos with those pictures with the horses, that was so great. I loved it.
It was definitely like an out of body kind of experience. Yeah, so we had a two-part trip. So we went to Istanbul, which was this was my first time going to this part of the world. So it was the longest flight I had ever been on. We did upgrade to business class again because of me. My husband wanted to be more logical about the price, and I was like, "Listen, do you want your wife to arrive feeling good and ready for this, or do you want her to be grumpy?" Okay? So I'm choosing my words, okay? Because I other words. But Istanbul was really nice. We stayed in this palace on the Bosphorus Strait, and, like, we were in Europe, but you could see Asia across the way. It was really just magical. You would have loved it. I don't know if you've ever been there?
Not yet, but it's on my list for sure.
Yeah, it was never on my list, that's the thing, but my company is based out of Istanbul, so that was why we had a trip there, but that was just really nice, and then the second leg of the trip, they flew us to Cappadocia, and if you've seen it on Instagram, it's where all of the hot air balloons are, and apparently I learned that it's the most ideal place in the world for hot air balloons, like the air conditions, like the conditions of the air. Expert or like a pilot or something came to Cappadocia in like the early 90s and studied the air conditions and was like, okay, this is like perfect. So they have the hot air balloons there like 200 something days out of the year. You know, it depends on the wind and whatnot, but it's a sunrise. So it's just beautiful because like we walked out, we stayed in a cave hotel and I walked out one morning at 5:45 and like you can just see all the hot air balloons are like going up and it's like over this gorgeous like a desert backdrop with all of these like rock formations and it just really amazing.
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to go. I'm definitely planning an adventure there, and we might just have to sparkle there. So that would be
Yes,
awesome.
definitely worthwhile of sparkling. If I were to go back, I definitely would wanna go back and spend some more time in Cappadocia.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
and lots of cats everywhere. I'm a cat person, so that's one thing about Turkey is there's cats everywhere on the street, and everyone just feeds them, like, they just are taken care of. It's like they're like community cats.
Yes. It's like
Yeah,
Morocco. There's cats everywhere in Morocco too.
it was great.
And I love it. Oh, I'm so excited. Well, I love that you've, again, been brave enough to pivot, make the transition, and you've always been open to new ideas and new opportunities, you know? And I think for all of us right now, as things continue to shift in the world, through technology and automation, et cetera, it's been, it can be challenging to see where you're going to fit in this new reality. And I think that for anyone that's on the path of, growth, spiritual evolution, which a lot of people probably listening to this are, I think the message is to not be afraid of change, to not be afraid to put yourself out there, to put yourself in new positions and opportunities that are going to end up creating a whole new level of yourself, your leadership, your life, your light. That's really, I think, such an important opportunity where we are right now and in the world. And I wonder for you, now that your kids are on the almost out of the house, right? You're super, super close now to being empty nesty. What is that going to mean for you and Jason? What is that going to look like? Do you feel like there's going to be any shift or change, or what are you preparing for this next season of your life as you transition?
So our daughter is starting her senior year of college, and our son is starting his junior year of high school. So we technically have 2 more years. We're not sure what he's gonna do when he graduates, but I've told him it's either gonna be college or military. He needs to have a path. He's the kind of kid, like, he has to have structure. Although he's following in our footsteps with wanting to be very entrepreneurial. So he's, like, already trying to sell things on Facebook Marketplace. But, I'm not sure. I know it looks like more freedom. I know it looks like more flexibility, which we're already there. He's turning 18 in, like, 2 months. So but you know what? He's a boy, and so the maturity level isn't quite there. So I still wouldn't, like, wanna go out of the country without him having supervision, but I think it just looks like more freedom, and it's, like, because, like, we're down here in South Florida. That was another transition that we made 3 years ago. We moved here from Colorado. We've done 3 cross-country moves now, and for the first time, we're actually someplace that feels like home, like, feels like we wanna plant roots. So it's kind of ironic that now that our kids are older and getting ready to go out and do, have their own lives in the real world, that we finally found a place where we wanna plant roots. So, I don't see us moving anywhere else. If I were to ever move anywhere else, it would be overseas. It would be probably somewhere in Europe, or I don't know. But we really like it down here. We really see potential for growth. Again, it goes back to that word, growth. Really love it here because it's such a melting pot. Like, there's people not only from all over the country, but from all over the world. And we're making really good connections. And it just feels good for us from a perspective of business to connect with other people who are doing things. Like, we have a neighbor that lives, like, literally his garage is like 15 feet from our garage. It just, like, backs up. He founded one of the most popular sunglass companies that, like, ever existed, and, like, sold out, some years ago, and he's living here where we're living while he's building his, like, really nice waterfront property. So that's just an example of the type of contacts that we've been able to make. So I don't see us making any big moves as far as, like, physically, but I do see us just having a little bit more freedom to kind of move about, do the things that we want to do, and maybe have a little bit more flexibility in travel.
Great. I love to hear that. Maybe you can come visit me.
Yes, I have been itching to get back to Europe, and so this was my first trip back to Europe since pre-pandemic. I hadn't been to Europe since 2018. So I had just been, like, itching to get back, and I do really love visiting there, but there's also, like, the modern conveniences of America, like air conditioning, um, that I think I would struggle to leave behind, like, full time.
Well, you just have to be real strategic in where you stay and when you go, right? So it's actually been not a bad thing that I've been here in the US for the summer because there's air conditioning everywhere and you're only sweaty when you want to be versus like Italy when it's always challenging for me in the summer because you're right, there's just not as much AC, which we're spoiled here. So I get it, totally get it. But that's when you need to go in the spring and the fall, not in the summer, and it's magical. So
Yeah, I do love Europe. Europe is amazing. So we'll definitely be planning some more trips. Our daughter will graduate college next year, and so we'll probably do some sort of a trip for her. And then the following year, our son graduates high school. We have our 25th wedding anniversary, and my husband turns 50. So it's going to be a major milestone year. So we'll definitely, my husband's wanting to do, like, a coast drive, like, in Italy from Spain. He has a whole thing planned, so I'll definitely be giving you a call. But also our business operates in 40 countries, so we have a lot more opportunity to go and travel and expand our business in other areas as well. So, and write it off on the taxes. So,
absolutely. My whole life is a tax deduction. It's so
right?
fabulous. So, so, Brooke, if people want to follow you on Instagram, you're the social celebrity still.
No, it's just my name.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
I had it, like, probably, like, 5 years ago.
well, your email is still social
It
celebrity.
is. It
Okay.
is. But
Right.
yeah, just
Yes,
you can
ma'am.
find me at Brooke Rash. There's just one of me.
Okay, great. So they're going to follow you there. And then also we'll make sure to add links to all your other socials and your website in the notes. So that way, if they want to dive in more, they can. How's that
Yeah,
sound?
absolutely.
That sound like a plan?
Yeah,
All right.
sounds good.
Thanks so much for being here today. It's always such a pleasure and so good to catch up because we haven't even had a chance to catch up in a while. So it was really lovely to have you. And for everyone that is listening, thank you, thank you, thank you for tuning in. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
With a soul sparkle.